Hi guys, this is Chandrasekhar. Today we're going to see the advanced topic in Gridview. As one of our followers or my subscriber has asked me a question, is it possible for a grid view to display image dynamically? It means like I should be able to upload an image, and once I upload that image, it has to go and store in a database, and once it gets stored in the database, it has to be retrieved and displayed in the grid view dynamically. So the moment you add a image, it has to store in the database, and immediately it has to be picked up by the grid view. So first let me show you the demo which I have developed, and we'll see how it works. So I'm going to select image and chosen file. I'm trying to upload that one. So this is what I was talking about. So the moment I click upload, the image is being the image that I store from my local drive is being saved in the database, and immediately it's been rendered in the grid view. So how did I do that? So that's what I'm going to explain what my code is, and I hope that will be informative for you guys. Okay, so let me close this one, start explaining the code. So first what I did was I created a database called as dummy.db, and then I created a table called image table, and these are the three columns which I created: ID, image name, and the image that is of data type image. That's what you have to watch out for. And then I created three procedures. So the first procedure is inserting the image. What it does is like it gets the image name and the particular image format, and then it inserts it into the above created table. And the second store procedure is to select the particular image, and it selects only the ID and the image name. So once I select those two things, based on these two, once I select these two values, once I get the ID, then I'll be calling this particular store procedure where I will pass the ID so that I would be able to retrieve the corresponding image. So that's how my logic is. So how am I going to logically call this store procedure? Let's get started with that one. So first of all, what I did was I created a project called as Gridview demo, which is just a continuation of my previous videos. So what I did was like I created a new page called image uploader Gridview.aspx, and let's see how that page looks like. So in this page, what I did was like I created a table with two columns. So in the first column, I gave the name, and which is just a label parameters. So I didn't use the label, actually I just hard-coded the values. I just typed the values, which is name, and upload your image. And then in this one I loaded a text box, and then this particular piece is called file upload. So you have a control called as file upload. So I dragged and dropped this particular control here, and then here I dragged and dropped a button, and I renamed that one as upload. Then I have a grid view here. So in this grid view, what I did was like I edited the columns, and I added a field. The first field is a template field. Another one is also a template field, but the small change that I made was like in this particular first field, which is called as image name, I added the header text as image name, and the second template field is also the header text name is image. So once I gave that one, I converted the template. If it is going to be a bound field, if your values are going to be a bound field, you have to convert that one to template and then set these values, or directly you can add the template field here, and you can change the header name, header text value. So once you click OK, you go to your source code and check that you have the code just same as what I have, That's what is very important. So the second thing is I went here and clicked edit templates. So my first item template was a label, and my second item template is actually an image. So what I did was, like, there was a label, actually I deleted that label, and then what I did, I dragged a image, a image thing here, and dragged and dropped it. Then I went to this smart tag of this image control and edit data binding. In that I added this particular expression, which is image handler dot ashx question mark id. I'll tell you what this one is. It's nothing but a query string. We are picking up the query string and then we are processing. So I'll explain you guys about this one. So I added this one. So we'll come to this part later, okay? And this is how my my grid view is being binded. So this is how I binded my grid view. So before that, what I did in my page load event, first before the page load event, we have to talk about this DBML. So what I did was, like, I dragged and dropped this image table that we created in the database and the 3 store procedure here, created this .dbml file and saved it. So if you don't know how to create a DBML file, I would encourage you guys to see my previous videos in my video sections in YouTube. So let me save that one. And then what I did was, like, in the page load event, I called a method called as the load the grid view. So in the load the grid view method, what I did, I created an object of this data context and then just called this select images and then ImageGridview.databind. So I'm binding my grid view. So what did this particular store procedure does is selects the image. So first I'm trying to load the image from the database. So when the page loads, what it does is, like, it hits the database and then picks all the values from the particular table if the image are already existing it. So if there is no image, no harm, it's not going to throw you any error or something like that. You won't be able to see the data grid. So a grid view, that's it. So USP underscore select images, what that store procedure does is select images. So this is the store procedure. So it just selects as and gives the image name and ID. So using this one, using these two values, what I did was, here, the moment I have those particular values and I try to bind that one in the grid view, now the next thing is, if the data are present, in that case what happens is, each time when the value is being added, what it does is, it tries to call this particular file called as image handler. So this image handler is nothing but, I'll show you how to create that one. Go right click on your project, click add and add new item, and in the web you go to generic handler, just change the file name as image handler or something, whatever the name that you give, and it creates a file something like this. So in this file, the code that we're going to write is what is more important. What happens is, the moment you load the particular ID, for each ID that process through the HTTP context, for each time when a result set is being written, for each value of ID through the query string called ID, we are trying to load the particular image ID. Once we load this image ID, what we are doing is, here is pretty simple, where we have declared a string and then I am calling a particular method here. We also specify the particular image type here, forgot to tell you. So once we tell this particular image content type, we're going to pick for the context.response. And then what we do is, we go to this image loader, we call this particular image loader function, and in this function passing this image ID, I'm converting it to an integer, and then again I'm creating a data context object and then calling the particular another store procedure called a select image by ID. So what this select image by ID store procedure does is, for each instance of ID, it calls this particular store procedure, and for each time one ID is being passed to this stored procedure, and for the passed ID, it selects the corresponding image, which is binary data. This particular value. So we are selecting this particular column for the given ID. Okay, so that's why in the page load event we call the particular method, and from that we are calling this stored procedure, and this stored procedure, what it does is it picks the name and ID. So once we get the ID through the HTTP context, we are calling this particular stored procedure in a consecutive way. So say for example, if your table is having 5 values, the first time when the load grid event is being load the grid view method is being called, it has 5 IDs right now, because it calls this particular store procedure, and then from the 5 with the 5 ID, each ID is being passed to this particular store procedure, and then we are selecting the corresponding image, and then we are binding each image to the rows of the grid view. Sounds a bit complicated. It's pretty easy once you get the hang out of it. So I have created a variable x. So after retrieving the first image, so what I'm doing is I'm selecting the first value for the provided ID. So for the provided ID, I'm selecting one value, and then I'm creating this memory stream object, converting it to an array, and then returning back to the stream. So once I get this one, I'm declaring a byte buffer, which is really not bad way of doing it. I'm hard coding the value, but the theme is I'm just reading the particular stream which contains the image. So what I'm doing is I'm writing a loop here. In this loop, what I'm doing is using the context.response.output stream method, I am writing byte sequence into the buffer, and that's what it's doing it. So the byte sequence.stream.read, what it does is, like, using the byte sequence int, I'm trying to read each value in the buffer. Now the buffer is having the value. That's what I'm trying to do. So once the buffer is having the value, I'm trying to pull each value using a byte sequence. So that's what it does. Then finally, what happens when we retrieve the particular image, immediately it gets binded to this particular grid view. That's it. So the most important part is, which I struggled really when I tried to write this particular logic, was this particular part, where this ID has to exactly match with your data grid expression, this ID and this ID. So this part is really important when you're doing the binding with the image control. This particular part is really important. So this is how you do it, because in this particular grid view, go to edit template and to this item template. I told you just while when we drag and drop a particular image control here, so edit data binding. So in this one we have to type this particular value. So now it will make some sense if I talk about this one. So this is just a small JavaScript expression, that's it. So this particular ID is what being captured or binded here. So that's how through the query string we are trying to get the particular ID. So let's test the code. Okay, so that's how it is. So if I try to upload a particular file, let's say if I try to upload it, so that's it. So I hope this would be informative for you guys, and we'll try to upload some more complicated concepts in Gridview soon, and see you guys. That's it.